Again, thank you for being here today. Let me invite you to take out your message guide, and you can follow along in that way as we look at the Word this morning. We are working our way through a series of messages that we're just simply calling Tough Questions. This is the Summer Stumper series, where we're trying to deal with some of the questions that, as we share our faith and as we talk with people, with the questions that we encounter as we kind of enter into dialogue. Some time ago, as you know, I was in New Jersey prior to coming up here, and so the New Yorker was something that a lot of people kind of looked at to get a sense of what's going on. And some time ago, there was a cartoon or a comic in the New Yorker, and I'm just going to put the graphic up there and see if you can see. And if you can't read it, it says, "Never, ever think outside the box." And, that kind of relates to people if you've got cats. Don't let your cat think outside the box. That's bad. But sometimes as believers, we tend to want to have everything in the box. We want everything to be very clear, very understandable, very defined. And so what I want to kind of get to this morning is that some of these questions that we're dealing with them in ways that are a little bit outside the box. It's not the normal way where we're dialoguing, or we would dialogue about some of these things. And so I want us to think outside the box today, and we're going to deal with the question, just briefly, the question of, does God exist? And you're like, oh my stars, my head hurts already. My head's already beginning to kind of throb a little bit. But just even in the prayer this morning, as Rich was praying, as we think about things that are going on in our country, as we think about things that are going on with our students, as Earl shared this morning, it would be very easy to say our world is so dysfunctional and so off track and so off the rail, there certainly cannot be a God. Can't be. And so today, this is, I think, a pertinent question that we find people asking, does God exist? And so a few weeks ago, we started this series with some of these challenging questions. And one of the questions that we dealt with initially was does life have a purpose? And kind of the out-of-the-box answer that we gave those number of weeks ago to the question, is there meaning to life, was Jesus' answer, and it was kind of an out-of-the-box answer. And Jesus' answer to the issue is their purpose is yes. And then purpose is summed up in our dear verses. It's summed up in a very succinct way. When Jesus said that we should love the Lord our God with all of our heart, all of our soul, all our strength, all our mind. We should love God with all that we are. And we should love our neighbor as ourselves. It's kind of an out-of-the-box answer. And so just to think about that, what are, in terms of thinking out of the box, what are some of the popular, what I would say, religions of our day? Well, one of them, I think, and you may say, this is really a religion. I think it is. One of them is image. Image really is kind of a religion. If you spend a couple minutes on television, it's largely about image. How we present ourselves. If you spend any time in the checkout at the supermarket, and you see any of the magazines or the I can't even call them hardly magazines, news, whatever, I don't even know what those are. Did somebody say rags? Kind of thing. You see that it has a lot to do with, image, glamorous models, svelte individuals, muscle-bound individuals, people, the arenas where they play, or the gym, they go to the gym. Or they go to famous places, or they go to chic restaurants. I was reading an article, and this really struck me so odd. I was reading an article that the new thing in restauranting, or restaurateuring, or food being a foodie, is going to super high-priced restaurants ordering a table full of food, eating none of it, paying the bill, and just walking out. Just because I can. And I'm a beautiful person. And what? Our image, our image. Image has a theology that says if you want to be in the inner circle, if you want to be someone, if you want to be connected, if you want to be important, you need to look like this. This is the package that you need. Our purpose in life is to look like that or to be that. But Jesus says what? It has nothing to do with how we look. He says what? It has everything to do with our heart. It has to do with our heart. If you would, another religion of our day, and thinking out of the box, would be Islam. Islam. Really kind of a sibling of Christianity, descending from Abraham. Its desire is to please Allah by accomplishing or doing the 5 things, if you would, the 5 things to fulfill their purpose. You have to recite the creed. You have to pray 5 times a day. You have to give alms to the poor. You have to participate in fasting during Ramadan. And you have to, at least once in your lifetime, make the journey or the Hajj. You have to go to Mecca. It's about doing. And a couple of weeks ago we said, you know, one of the things that makes it so hard for us to share about our faith and for our faith to be discussed and even dialogued about is that so many people are in the business of doing or religion. And that's not the business that we're in at all. We're in the business of relationship. Because I can never do the things that are necessary for me to be good in the eyes of a holy God. That's why when we come to the table, we remember what Jesus did, because he did that for us, because we couldn't do it for ourselves. And so we talk about having a relationship with Jesus. And so when you tell someone all the things that they have been doing to connect them with God really are not what God's looking for at all, that gets tough. That gets tough. So today I want us to think a little out of the box with regard to how do we deal with this question, does God exist? And I want us to do it from Mark chapter 15. If you want to use a pew Bible, you can use the Bibles that are there. It's page 900. The scripture passages are available in your message guide. You can follow along in that way if you would like. But each week we've been trying to bring Jesus into these conversations and the conversations and these questions here. And so here in Mark's gospel, we want to look at some verses that kind of tie into this question. And Mark's gospel is really the shortest of all of the gospels. It's the swiftest, it's action-oriented, there's always something going on. And Mark's favorite word, as you read through this gospel, is translated immediately, or right away, or as soon as. And so this happened, and immediately Jesus, ... 42 times in this gospel we see that. Immediately. After, and they did this, as soon as. 42 times. Up until the beginning of this chapter. And so we look at the first verse of Mark 15, verse 1. It says this: immediately, in the morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes, the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and delivered him to Pilate. Immediately, as soon as. And it's the last time this word appears in the book of Mark. He's been saying it so much, and it's interesting. And I think this is a literary thing here. He pushes and he pushes immediately, as soon as, and we're going, and we're going, and we're going. And all of a sudden, he gets to the place where the Pilate and the people come and they take Jesus away to be crucified, and all of a sudden, it's as if he puts the brakes on. And it's no longer as soon as or immediately. It's as all of a sudden, he's like, we've got you through all of this in order for you to grab this. This is what I want you to see. This is the moment. It's kind of like that person next door who has the car alarm, you know, and it goes off all the time. And you're like, oh my stars. Again. Every time the breeze happens, the car alarm goes off. Even time, you know, whatever. Oh, car alarm. But then all of a sudden it goes off for a while, and then there's silence. And you take notice. And here, I think Mark has us pushing, and he does it again and again and again, immediately, as soon as, right after, and then all of a sudden, and he catches their attention in this. And so, this is where he picks it up, and this is the moment, beginning in verse 33, and reading down to verse 39, this is what it says. When the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is translated, my God, why have you forsaken me? So some of those who stood by, when they heard that, said, look, he's calling for Elijah. Then someone ran and filled a sponge full of sour wine, put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink, saying, let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to take him down. Jesus cried out with a loud voice and breathed his last. Then the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. So when the centurion who stood opposite him saw that he cried out like this and breathed his last, he said, truly this man was the Son of God. 3 thoughts this morning, very quickly, from this passage that I want you to grab onto, that I think address the issue of does God exist? And the first is this: how in the world does this text speak to the question of whether God does or does not exist? How does this connect? Well, let me start with a person that you probably won't know, but maybe you heard about some time ago. Do you know who this gentleman is? This guy, his name is Hemant Mehta, and he is famous. He's an author, he's a blogger, he's an atheist activist, and he has gained fame. He was famous for selling his soul on eBay. And he's a regular speaker at atheist events, those types of things, and at these events, he will give 8 reasons why he doesn't believe that there is a God. And he says, I really appreciate people's questions and their dialogue, and this is something that is often discouraged. I like to follow where the evidence leads, and it leads away from God. And so he sums up all of his things at the end, and he says this. He says, it is the only rational position to take. Now, I'm going to disagree with that, and I hope that you would disagree with that too. But at face value, he's saying that the question whether there is or is not a God really is a question of rational. It's just a question of what I can prove or disprove. It's a question of what I can provide evidence for or what I can provide evidence against. He says it's a mind thing. It's a thinking thing. It has to do with our approach, to thinking about those things. It's about logic and it's about reason. Many of you will know who Thomas Aquinas is. Thomas Aquinas is a famous theologian. Thomas wrote 13th century, 1250 basically up through the 1275. He wrote what was called Summa Theologica, the climax of theology. And in it he gives rational reasons, if you would, for why God exists. And he gives such as arguments for the existence of efficient cause. He gives possibility and necessity, the gradation of being, argument from design, those types of things. And it's all rational, and it's all deep, and it's good, but it's rational. It's about my logic and what I can prove. A Nobel Prize-winning chemist quoted this after coming to grips and grappling with it. She says this. She says, the statistical probability that the organic structures and the precisely harmonized reactions typified could be generated by accident is 0. She says there's just no way everything that we see in our world around us could come together just by accident. It's just 0. It's just 0. And that's great, and I don't want to dispel the rational arguments because I think they're wonderful. But we are more than just minds. We're more than just thinking individuals. There's another part of us, if you would. There's another part of us that needs to be, if you would, addressed. And that's where I think this passage comes in, Mark 15. And the other Gospels, they weren't written, if you would, to present logical, rational arguments. That's not why they were written. They weren't written to prove, if you would, God's existence. Rather, they're written to say, this is what God's like. So if you want me to back it up, here's the deal. What we read in Scripture presumes the existence of God. There wasn't any question. There wasn't any question as to whether there was a God. And so what we see written here is not to provide rational evidence. It's to address a different part of who we are, if you would, to address our heart. And so today, if you're keeping notes and stuff, this is our transforming truth. So the question is not, is there a God, but what is your God like? Everyone here this morning and everyone out there this morning, and if you're joining us by streaming, whatever, or if you watch this a month or a year later, you need to know everyone has a God. The question is, who is that God? What is that God like? An atheist might say, I don't have a God. I would say your God is whatever you look to for acceptance or approval or significance or affirmation. All of us have a God. Timothy Keller, former pastor down at Redeemer Presbyterian in New York City, says this. He says, our need for meaning is so powerful that whatever we base our meaning and value on, we essentially make our God. And we will look to it with all of the passion and intensity of worship, of worship and devotion, even if we consider ourselves to be highly irreligious. The question isn't, is there a God? The question is, what is he like? Who is he? And that's what Mark is doing here. And how he goes about answering the question. The second thing is this. So then what does the text say about the question? Well, let's simplify it. The first thing it says is that God is just and God is righteous. The first verse, verse 33, says this. It tells us about God's justice and his righteousness. Now when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. Now that idea of darkness over the whole land is an exact quotation. In fact, it takes us into the Old Testament. It takes us into Exodus. It takes us to the 10 plagues. And it's the 9th plague in the Old Testament where darkness comes over the land of Egypt. And Mark borrows this idea. And he brings it into the New Testament, and he brings it into the place of what's going on with Jesus as he hangs on the cross. It's an allusion here to God bringing judgment. Just as he did in the Old Testament, he brought judgment upon Egypt, and here God is bringing judgment upon his Son for the sins of the world. There are other phrases that are similar to this in the Old Testament. In Joel chapter 2, it talks about darkness as being thick gloom. Over the land, there was a thick gloom. A judgment of God being poured out. I'm hard-pressed to have met anyone who is not concerned with righteousness and unrighteousness, with things that are right and wrong. They may say that, you know what, you can have your own right and wrong, and I can have my own, but everyone gravitates towards a right and a wrong. Everyone heads in that direction. Christopher Hitchens, the famous atheist, talks about God is not good. God is not good. There's a right and a wrong there. But if you back it up, the question becomes, where do we get our idea that there even is a right and a wrong, or there is that kind of thing? What are they based on? When we dismiss God, we remove a basis for right and for wrong. And what we see in God is a God who's just, a God who's righteous. Now the second of these things here that we just kind of grab onto is found in verse 38. Then the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. About a quarter mile from where Jesus hung on the cross is the temple. And here in the temple is the place where God's people would meet with him regularly. At the heart of this temple is a room called the Holy of Holies, and the holiest place in this Holy of Holies is separated from the workers and the priests and by a massive curtain. A massive curtain. It's understood that God's presence resides in that place. It's where he dwells on earth. There's no way to enter except through the curtain. And all of a sudden we see here, when Jesus dies, that this curtain is torn from the top to the bottom. It's as if God's hand says, the way into my presence is now open. And so not only do we have a God of justice and of righteousness who knows right and wrong and determines those things, but we also have a God that says, here is mercy and here is grace. I'm opening a way for you to connect with me and to have a relationship with me. And I make it possible through my Son. Through the fact that his body was broken and his blood was shed for you. That's a God who's worth knowing. That's a God who's worth knowing. So in a backwards way, in kind of an unexpected way, Mark says, hey, let's slow down and let's think about this here. Think about this God and who he is. Think about that. Let's move aside from the rational for a moment and think about something that's much more practical. That we all have a God, and who will that God be, and what kind of a God do I want to have and embrace? I want to embrace and have a God who, yes, is just and righteous, who knows and sets right and wrong, but I also want one that is able to offer me forgiveness, mercy, and grace when I mess up, because I do all the time. Who provides for me to have a relationship with him in the midst of the fact that I'm a mess. So where do we go from here? And that's the final thing. So what do we do with this? And again, boy, you could just spend weeks on this question, and so I'm kind of just, this is buckshot, people. This is biblical buckshot, you know? But where do we go from here? We go to verse 39. So when the centurion who stood opposite him saw that he cried out like this, breathed his last, he said, truly, this man was the Son of God. Now, a centurion is a non-commissioned officer. He's a Roman. He would have, if he would have risen through the ranks to become this. And he likely had overseen many crucifixions. They weren't rare. Rome practiced this as a form of extreme punishment. And so this was probably a hard guy. He was very hardened. But he notices there's something different about what's going on here. There's something different about the way that Jesus dies and the way he approaches this. And Mark doesn't say what is different, but he does say how this guy responds. And this guy's response is that this guy's God. This is God. He recognizes that the climax, and this really is the climax of Mark's gospel, and he's been building here since the beginning and ends here. He kind of immediately, as we go, and right now and stuff, and he pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes, and he gets you to the moment, and then he slows you down, and he says, take a good look. Take a good look. Look at who that is. There is a God. And there he is. He's a God who knows justice and righteousness and brings judgment. But he's also a God who's full of mercy and grace and loves you so much. And so here the soldier affirms there is a God of righteousness and mercy, a God who loves, and it's in him that it all comes together, and it's captured in Jesus Christ. If you're here this morning and you know Jesus Christ, when we come to the table, we do so with great thanksgiving. We do so with praise because we remember this God that we serve and who he is and what he has done for us. But if you're here this morning and you don't know Christ and you're still trying to figure out who God is or who your God is and what he's like, let me encourage you today. Let me encourage you today to think about Christ and to consider him. Because he is the package. He's the package that brings it all together. He truly is the Son of God, this Jesus.